Hello, I run a page called Sane in the Asylum, and this video is going to be about me unpacking my 4-month-long experience of being in therapy. And at this point, I've been out of therapy for 3 months now. So this is going to be me going over the process of how I got into therapy, why I got into therapy, and kind of reflecting on that experience while also giving kind of an update on how my life has gone since then. And so to start, I got into therapy and I also started my page called Sane in the Asylum, which was a blog where I was documenting my experience because I was in a solo recovery process from an attempt to end my life. And that took place now, it'll be 3 years in October. So I'm well past that experience, but when I had made it through the initial kind of recovery process from that attempt, I started peeling back all the things that were kind of behind that experience, what was motivating me in that direction. That has taken me quite some time to actually get through. Truthfully, I didn't even have much of a say in how much of that stuff that was behind the attempt was coming out and being brought to my attention, because a lot of it was just intrusive thoughts all the time and intrusive memories all the time, and it was just a lot of stuff that was very overwhelming for me, and stuff that I didn't have the appropriate coping mechanisms to deal with. Because, after my attempt, I wasn't in reality for a decent amount of time. There was a decent amount of time that elapsed where I was not really in reality. And then when I came out of that, I was having to, ground myself in reality, and then try to figure out what to do with all these intrusive thoughts that were coming at me, all these memories that were coming at me, and this overwhelming sense of dread and helplessness and just hopelessness that was just so pervasive in my life at that time. So I dealt with that, and I journaled through that, and I walked that off, and I started trying to take care of my health, and I just wasn't feeling any better. And it wasn't helping me, and I was starting to feel really, really helpless and really hopeless, and I knew that there were things in my life that I needed to change, but I didn't have any way to know exactly what those things were. I had a vague idea of what I wanted to do and where I wanted to get, but I had no idea how to get there. And so I started to think that maybe therapy was going to be a good option. It was going to help me, get where I needed to go, or at least give me a good idea. Because it was going to be somebody on the outside of me, with more knowledge, more resources, more, wisdom that could direct me in the right place. Or so I thought. But my therapeutic relationship lasted a total of 4 months, where I was seeing the therapist every 2 weeks, just about. And there was some times in there where, an appointment got canceled or something, and so I saw her maybe once that month, or a month would pass between the times I would see her. So, on average, when I've looked it up, on average, the therapeutic relationship between most people and their therapist that leads to symptom reduction is 15 to 20 sessions. And a lot of people that I've talked to about, their therapeutic relationships have had weekly sessions, and it's been much more intense. But for me, it was 4 months total at 2 sessions, or at a session once every 2 weeks, which is about 2 a month. That's about 8 sessions total. Maybe. And I don't even know if it was 8 sessions total. It might have been a little bit more, it might have been a little bit less, but it was a very brief relationship. When I came into therapy, I had already had my mind made up of what I was trying to accomplish. So I kind of sat down in the session and I was waiting for the therapist to catch up with my own thought process, which I don't know if that's what you're supposed to do or not. I think maybe I was just looking for some validation that my own thought process wasn't a crazy one. But I mostly sat in the sessions and we talked about, you know, whatever came up in that moment. And a lot of the times, you know, like for me personally, I will hold things in for a very long time, and then something completely insignificant will cause it all to come out. And it won't even be that that small thing was important, or, you know, or even something that needed to be addressed. It's just that that small thing just happened to be what triggered me on a very bad day. So a lot of the times we spent a large portion of our sessions dwelling on whatever that small thing was that I got hung up on, and completely ignoring, you know, the big picture things that I really had come there to deal with. So I had come into therapy with all these ideas of what I'd wanted to hear, the direction that I wanted to receive, what I thought I needed. But I had also walked in after doing a solid 1.5 years of solo recovery after this attempt, with no therapy or no intervention. And also, I had went through the initial intake process right after I got my GED, and that night I got home from that initial intake process, I found out from that Facebook post, or from a Facebook post, that my mother was dead. So I walked into my first therapy session with a whole lot of ideas of what I wanted to hear, direction I wanted to receive, and my mother had just died. So I was in a very weird place when I went into therapy. And it's funny that we hardly ever even addressed the death of my mother, which is something that I've definitely addressed on my own, but it was hardly ever even addressed in therapy. So, to move on, my therapist, after, it was in May, it's the beginning of May, we had a session on the 8th of May that was scheduled. And at the end of the session previous, I had received a notification that the next session was going to be canceled because she had an appointment or something come up. And then shortly after that, she went on medical leave. So she wasn't in the office for a while. And at this point, I had just received a phone call that I had gotten the job offer at an assisted living facility, because I was in a position where I was looking for a job. My son had just started school, or he was in his second year of school. And I was trying to, you know, set things in place to gain my independence. So I just received that job offer, and our sessions were going to get messed up anyways because I could no longer make it to a 9 o'clock session when I had to be at work. So I called when I had not received any kind of notice to make an appointment for the following month, and I found out that she was on medical leave. So I was like, okay, let's not worry about this for a while. And then I waited for another month, and I called again, and still she wasn't back from medical leave. And they said it was going to be the following month. So here we are we're in August. We're in August. My son just went back to school. I've been at my job now 3 months. And she still has not returned from medical leave. But also, after 2 months, I believe it was, I started to feel like if there was going to be a third month that I was going to have to get through on my own, that I might as well just stop coming to therapy. I might as well just end the therapeutic relationship and just get on with my life. So I sent a very long, polite message that was truthful. I wasn't, you know, egging her on or you know, trying to be polite when I had really resentful feelings. But I sent this, you know, nice, polite message that was very truthful about the nature of the relationship for the 4 months. And she didn't respond to it, but she was on medical leave, or she wasn't going to respond to it. And I said that I thought that, you know, we were probably ready to end the therapeutic relationship, but I was going to wait for her input on it. But when I found out that she wasn't going to be back for a whole nother month after that, I sent a very short message that said, you know, it's over. You know, it almost sounds like it's a breakup, but it's not. It's just, you know, there has to be kind of an end to something that's taking up too much emotional space in your life, because if you have to constantly wait for this box to get opened again and get you all messed up when you are, you know, getting it done on your own, then, you know, you should do what feels right for you. And you can always go back or see another therapist or something like that in the future. But for me, it's just after I hit that 2-month mark and I realized it was going to be another month before, maybe not even in that 3rd month, that I was going to have a therapist again. I couldn't do it. I went to the doctor, a medical doctor, in the same, you know, facility where I saw my therapist. And from the discharge papers that I received at the doctor, I could read through my chart notes, and that was when I figured out that I had been diagnosed by my therapist with chronic post-traumatic stress disorder and generalized anxiety disorder, and those were the 2 diagnoses that she had assigned to me. And we didn't really talk about these. I talked to her about the fact that I thought I might have complex post-traumatic stress disorder just from research I had done on my own and from the experiences that I had had as a child. But from what I had looked up, there is just a slight bit of difference between chronic post-traumatic stress disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And though I didn't really think that generalized anxiety disorder fit me very well, that was another diagnosis that was added there also. So we didn't really talk much about that because the relationship was over very quickly after that. So I'm going to move on to, you know, the things in my life that I changed or that happened to change in the 3 months that I had quit therapy. First, I'm going to talk about something that was just kind of, it just was a continuing experience. It's been 8 months since my mother died, and that was a very hard process for me to go through. And it brought up so many things that I didn't really count on, and so many feelings that I hadn't really counted on, and I've just felt so many different weird ways about that. But I'm in the 8th month, I'm finally starting to feel better. I'm starting to feel like I have a life ahead of me. I'm starting to feel like, you know, that I can get on and that I don't think about it 24/7 like I was, and that I'm okay. I'm starting to feel okay in my body and my soul, I suppose. It's just that weight that was on me, you know, for those first couple of months, it's not really there anymore. It's lifting, it's going away, I'm starting to feel better. And that could be because of other things I've got going in my life too. I just reached 90 days at my job. I work at an assisted living facility as a housekeeper, and I just hit 3 months there. I was also offered a position as activities director there, but I do not have a license, so I had to pass on that opportunity. But that was one of those things that was kind of like, it motivated me, as I wasn't too upset about losing the opportunity, but it has motivated me to work on other things in my life that I really need. I've continued going to that support group, that cafe support group that I started going to right before I quit therapy. Or not right before I quit therapy, right before my last session of therapy. Actually, I had talked to my therapist about how I was going to this place during our final session. So that has been something that I've continued to do. I also joined a church, which is so out of character for me. I mean, it's not out of character for me, but it just really wasn't where I expected my life to go. But that has been it's been unexpected. It's been an unexpected joy in my life. I suppose. I am cross-trained to work in the kitchen at my job, so sometimes I work my morning shift as a housekeeper, and then I go in the evenings at the same facility, and I work in the kitchen serving. So it's nice that I can work in two different places and kind of get an idea of how two different work environments within like the same building, within the same facility, how they both operate, which I think is kind of nice because I like to know multiple parts of the same thing. That's just something that really is interesting to me. And also, I am in the process of dissolving a nearly 10-year-long relationship with my partner. So it's the only partner that I've had for my entire life, and I'm going through the process of establishing my independence and dissolving the relationship. So moving forward, I am going to be working towards getting out on my own and being single and working towards building my own life on my own. I started drinking this tea about an hour and a half ago, and I've noticed it's this Rosy Mood tea. I started drinking it about an hour and a half ago, and I've noticed that it definitely has put me in a better mood. And I think it works pretty well. I feel relaxed. I feel calm. I feel happy. And I feel generally chatty. So if you like that, maybe you should try that tea. Because I've tried a number of teas, and it's really hard to find one that actually supports like a good mood, or like an even mood. All in all, that's been my experience over the course of recovery from the attempt, getting into therapy, having the therapeutic experience be over, and then all the efforts and the seeds that I've sown in my life afterwards. And that's what my experience looks like right now, and a little bit of what my future is starting to look like now. And I'm hoping to start making more videos. I started making videos after my mother died, not because I have nothing to lose, but because grief is a very strange process. And also, I figure this experience, what I'm doing here, is a little bit therapeutic for me as well, because it's not that anybody's going to see it, because for the most part no one's going to see it, but it's out in the world, it's open, it's not a dirty secret that I'm keeping, and maybe the right person will see it and it will matter to them, be important to them, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. I don't want these things to really matter a whole lot. I just want to keep moving forward in my life and let things go as I feel ready to part with them. And so that is the end of this video, and I hope to keep making more. I hope to continue documenting this journey for myself and for anybody who wants to see it. Alright, thank you. Bye. Also, here's a brief peek into my garden. These are the various kinds of zinnias that I decided to grow this year. Plus I have some herbs and some tomatoes and some 4 o'clocks, which won't be out till later tonight. And some dahlias that are coming in.